Very good, thank you. So welcome everyone, and thank you for taking some time to join us on our webinar for today. This is our third webinar that the Cowichan Strong Group's done that's been related to engaging with government. We started off with our MP Alistair McGregor. Previously we did MLA Sonia Furstenau, and today we're doing our local mayors. So if you're interested in the webinars previously from our MP or MLA, they're actually on the Cowichan Strong website. You can navigate the website and find them pre-recorded there, some great information. So moving into today, I'd like to introduce our three guests. They're going to be part of our webinar. The Honorable Aaron Stone, Mayor of Ladysmith and also the Chair of the CVRD Board. Honorable Al Sebring, Mayor of Municipality of North Cowichan, and Honorable Mayor Michelle Staples from the City of Duncan. So a big thank you to the three of you for joining us today. I suspect we're going to have some great discussion that'll come out of this. So just before we get started with them, I just want to explain or just let you know about some housekeeping rules for how we'll engage with everyone today. So each of our guests are going to have 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning just to give us a quick update on what's going on in their local government related to business supports and activities. And then following that, we have 4 questions that we're going to pose to each of them to help us learn more about working with businesses. And next is time permitting, and we really hope so, we're going to take 2 or 3 questions from the audience. Now that's going to happen via the chat box. So you can touch the bottom of your screen and that'll bring up your chat box, and you can just type your question into there. Now you have the option of posing the question to every one of our mayors, or you can just clarify in your question if you want to pose it to one mayor. So myself and Carrie, my colleague, will be moderating the questions and bringing them forward at the end of the session. So to make this all happen, all our guests and attendees will be kept on mute. And then therefore your questions will be asked via the chat box. Now it's likely we won't get to all the questions, so we are going to capture those and follow them up with responses in the near future. And then also today's session is being recorded. So if anyone wants to watch it or let anybody else know to watch it, it'll be on the Cowichan Strong website, which is cowichanstrong.ca. So time is of the essence, so we're going to start with Mayor Stone and get his opening comments.
I'm sure if you unmute me or I unmute myself. First of all, I just want to say thank you, welcome to everybody who came, and especially for the Cowichan Strong team, all the chambers of commerce, business organizations, our local business associations, downtown groups, and really on the collaboration and input that they've given us so far, and how we can, transition through this time and turn our minds to recovery and rebuilding as we move forward. And obviously, hopefully today we get good news from our premier. From a Ladysmith perspective, I just need to reiterate how strong our local business organizations have been. This Cowichan Strong initiative is a good example of that partnership between the Chamber, Community Futures, and of course local government, EDC Cowichan, but also our local chambers of commerce as well throughout the region, who have been gathering information, supporting their concerns, and helping us funnel that input through when we get opportunities to speak to the province or the federal government. I've also been fortunate enough to be a member of the roundtable for rural economic development with the federal government, started last Friday, and we rejiggered our initiatives to focus on COVID recovery. So we had our first meeting last Friday. I'm excited about that process because it allows a bottom-up flow of information. And I would encourage everybody, if you've got an elected official who you speak with on a regular basis, or if you want to reach out to me, if you're able to provide input and on your concerns or what opportunities you think there may be, I can help drive that conversation from the bottom up. And as well as coordinating with our MP McGregor and Paul Manley in the northern region here, as well as our MLAs, Doug Routley and Sonia Furstenau. we can keep making sure that our voices and concerns are heard, and we fill those gaps that I think are still present. I'll turn it over to the other mayors so they can get their intro in, because I think the most important part today is obviously all of your questions. So thank you so much for having me, and we're just here to support you, and hopefully our communities can recover successfully together.
All right, Mayor Sebring.
Thank you very much. And also, I'd like to echo what Aaron said. Thank you for the opportunity. Not a lot to add there. There's been a lot of dialogue and collaboration between levels of government. One of the positives that's come out of this for me is relationships, in terms of particularly the Minister of Municipal Affairs. She answers my phone calls now. Not that she wouldn't before, but it's a little different. It's just a different feeling. And we're having some very, very good dialogue. From a North Cowichan perspective, our focus is on reopening to get business going. And to be fair, I was talking to our CAO this morning, and he says we're at about 95% now, not in terms of staff working in the building, but we're up and running. We've got people working from home. We're taking applications. We're doing building inspections. We're doing all the stuff we need to do. One of the things that he asked me to ask you all is, what gaps have you identified in terms of the municipal services that are still needed? And I can take that back, and we'll see what else we can do. But from our perspective, things are going fairly well. Our focus going forward right now, and a lot of it will depend, as Aaron said, on what the Premier says this afternoon, but a lot of the focus for us will be on logistics around things like tax collection for July 2nd, and trying to map out a strategy where people can actually come to the hall and do some business in person again. And we're working on that right now. There's staff that are installing the plexiglass shields and doing that sort of stuff, trying to make it all happen. So things are very much on the agenda. I'm looking forward to the questions today. In the interest of brevity, I'll turn it over to Mayor Staples for her opening comment as well. Thank you.
So good morning. Yeah, thanks again for organizing this. It's good to be able to connect in this way. I still find it really a strange way to communicate with people. It's so much different when you are looking at screens. It's hard to engage in that way, but it's what we have, and we're making it work. Our council and our city staff have all been learning Zoom, and it's been a process for everyone, but it's a great way for us to communicate. I think that the same things, really waiting to hear what Premier Horgan has to say today. As Al pointed out, we've had amazing relationships going through this with the province, really open communications, as well as with Island Health. Locally, we have a really strong leadership team that we continue to meet every week. And it's been amazing to see all the different ways that community groups, organizations, individuals, local governments, all levels of government really have come together to support each other and to support our community through this. From the city perspective, we've managed to keep we have a small staff, and we've kept everyone working. We've been really focusing on trying to get downtown infrastructure projects that we can wrapped up while businesses were closed, some of the main ones that were happening there, and looking at how to reconfigure things as we move forward so that we're not interrupting businesses once they start, and keeping the farmers market going so people can have fresh food that's locally produced, and working with the Downtown Business Improvement Association to really spread out that local message of, here's how you can connect with businesses that are open, the ways that they're open, and yeah, working with businesses to find out what they want to do and how they want to move forward. And where we're going from here, essentially, we're starting a task force on response, resilience, and recovery, looking at business in all of Duncan and the community and what we need to do. We want to find out from businesses what they are looking for that will support them. And so I'm really hoping that today is a way for us to do that. And we've just launched a granting program as well to get ideas to have some small investment that's all locally based to support the changes and the adaptations that will be made to our business community and our local economy.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. So let's just jump into our first question, and this is specific to the restaurant industry. We know that we have a lot of them in the area, and they're poised to start opening fairly soon. So is there any conversations going in at your local government where you're going to address any bylaw changes needed to expand the patio seating? Because patio seating has been identified as a way to increase seats in a restaurant. And that's a local government initiative. So who would like to respond to that first?
I'll take that one. It's a local government initiative, but any restaurant that serves liquor needs the line expanded for the service of liquor out on the street. That's a provincial issue. I'm not trying to push it off, but the province has to give that permission. From our perspective at North Cowichan, once the province gives that permission, we're not going to get in the way and get all regulatory on people and say, now you need a temporary use permit or any of that nonsense. We recognize that it's time to move forward. And I say that in recognition that, I'm one of 7 on council and somebody may want to bring it up, but I really can't imagine there would be an appetite to delay the reopening while we go through those regulatory issues. If the province expands the boundaries for liquor service, have at her. That's sort of my perspective as mayor, and I'm really hoping that's our perspective as a municipality.
Thank you, Al. Michelle or Aaron?
Oh, thanks, Aaron. So so patios are already permitted as long as there's a sidewalk outside of a business. And so that's a place for us to start. And again, working with local businesses to address their individual needs for their business and looking at different ways that we can perhaps work with parking spaces, work with other spaces downtown. All those conversations are just starting to happen, and like everyone else, we're really waiting for the direction of the province so that we know what kind of conversations we can actually be having and start to put those things into place. And similar to Al, too, we're not going to make this a process that's mired in red tape. We want to support businesses any way we can.
Yeah, and I would echo both of Michelle and Al's comments, and also that idea of parklets. Our Main Street eateries obviously don't have patio space available. They have street side. Thankfully, we do have significant sidewalk spaces, and that could be provided. But again, with the liquor regulations around the province, most of our patio restaurants probably have underutilized patios right now that they can more expand into and dedicate more seating there. So we're hopeful with that. So I think that idea of sort of revisiting parklets, which is something is in our downtown sort of vitality planning in terms of making it more of a people space for people to linger and gather. Places like the Old Town Bakery already use a significant portion of the public facility to accommodate essentially patio seating on fixtures provided by the city just because of their location. But I know that as parking has been more available, that we would be open to entertaining things that maybe we've wanted to try before, but didn't have the necessary impetus to do that. And I think this will allow us to get a bit more creative with the provisions. And we're also doing the same kinds of things, providing bollards to the corners that have large areas that could be used for seating to provide protection and safety for people, so that we can start that work. And that work's actually happening right now while our downtown is a little bit quieter than usual, to say the least. So yeah, definitely would be something that we would support. And I would probably see our council, again, being one of 7, following something like Mayor Sebring had laid out, where we're not going to be regulatory, we're not going to be heavy on enforcement. We want to facilitate opportunities for people. And this may be an opportunity for us to try something we've wanted to try for quite some time.
Excellent, thank you. So the next topic or theme is local taxes. And I don't know who wants to jump in first, but Aaron, so at anything you want to comment in terms of tax relief or what the business community can expect around that topic? Thank you.
Well, I'll give Al props first, because he just recently sent a letter following other local government leaders on the hardship deferral for all taxpayers, but the province themselves, of course, came up with the school tax forgiven or reduction for this year that will essentially come out to about a 25% tax reduction, and extended the deadline for payment to October 1st. We kind of made that our mandate across the board. Of course, all of our municipalities have had to absorb a huge loss in revenue. For a small town like Ladysmith, I think our revenue loss projected for this year equals to about 5% of taxation. Even with that, our staff worked really hard to present options to be able to bring the tax burden down. We ended up at a 1.92 rate, but on the business side, I think it was a little bit less. When combined with the subsidies from the province, our local commercial taxpayers should look at about a 23-24% overall reduction in taxes for 2020. But we also have to be mindful, and you see this kind of varying from municipality to municipality, is that there's the challenge around what happens next year and the continued loss of revenues and how we manage that. To achieve what we did this year, we had to make a 3% cut to our capital reserves, and those need to be restored. So we have a plan to look at that over a few years to restore those funding levels, to not make it a sort of a yo-yo of taxation. So we're very mindful of our spending and our capital works over the next couple of years, and also taking the opportunity where we do have staff available that might not be able to perform their regular duties, getting them to do some of those back burner projects that have been sitting there for months or years, so that we're better set up as we go into the recovery phase with everything sort of as focused, all of our staff resources and our council resources focused on recovery. So tax relief is a really tough thing for local governments, but we continue to advocate to the province and federal government for more opportunities for that, and we will have to see what it looks like next year.
Thanks, Aaron. Michelle Oral.
All right, I'll take long pause. From our perspective, a lot of what Aaron said, same thing. We canceled over $700,000 worth of capital projects. Our income is projected to be down about 600 grand between now and the end of June. That's the rec fees we don't take in, and the programming fees and all the other stuff. It's been a real hit. Our taxes at the end of the day went up 1.44%. We spread that evenly right across all of them. And even at that, with the provincial relief on the education side, it's a 75% cut in the education tax that the province put forward on the business and the commercial and industrial classes. So for us too, that'll amount for most businesses to about a 23-25% net cut in your taxes payable. New tax deadline, as Aaron indicated, is the end of September for commercial and for industrial. And last week we made a move to say we're doing the same thing with the residential side. Part of that was staff was concerned. We have split zone properties in North Cowichan that part of the property tax would be due July 2nd and part of it would be due at the end of September. So we said, you know, that's a crazy administrative nightmare. So we passed a special tax scheme bylaw, it's called. I didn't even know we could do this until a few weeks ago. You learn stuff. And so we set our own deadline, and that deadline now matches up for both residential and commercial industrial. So I think beyond that, that's it for us in terms of the taxation piece, except to say, as Aaron said, next year is going to be hellish, particularly in North Cowichan in the context of the RCMP station, which we are going to build. We've made that collective decision to say, you know what, there's a good chance that construction costs may come down because of a downturn in the industry. Who knows? But you know, this thing has been on the drawing board since I was first elected in 2008. It's got to happen. So that's going ahead, and we'll leave it there. Michelle?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. The city's done a lot of the same things. I feel like one of the things that's really come out of this is that we were having weekly mayor meetings with mayors all across BC, and so there's been a lot of collective response from all of us, and including the letter that was referred to being sent out. The city sent one as well, and we're getting a lot of sort of as soon as those gaps are identified, there's a whole collective group of us coming forward to address them together and speak directly to the minister about them. So that's definitely made a huge difference. In terms of the city tax increase on the businesses, again, we had the same discussion. We don't want to, how do we make this a balance so that next year we're not going to be, having a huge tax increase on people when this is going to take us a while. We're talking about rebuilding, and at the same point in time, we're still in response, and it's gonna kind of go back and forth between all of these places, and so we're going to have to be resilient through this entire process. So our taxes for businesses, we decided on 2.74% for the average business. That works out to about $153 a year in additional taxes. So again, trying to make that balance between not wanting to put more pressure on people at a later time.
Sorry, can I jump in on that? Because I think it's important I address the regional district taxation as well. Obviously, businesses in Shawnigan and stuff are affected differently than those of us in the municipalities. And I did put out a letter, an open letter to all of our residents and businesses around the difficulties with taxation in regional districts. The deadlines for regional district taxation were right at the end of March, and there was neither the opportunity, because once we got the social distancing guidelines in, to even hold a meeting in those last couple days of March to make any dramatic adjustments that would provide relief. So we continue to advocate for deferral opportunities. That was successful on the commercial side. So those commercial school tax reductions do apply to all business and industrial class properties. So there is that relief there in the near term. And I know that the staff at the CVRD, understanding that they couldn't make amendments to the budget for this taxation year, have been very analytical about looking over the next couple of years and how we carry forward possibly funding for capital projects from this calendar year into next year to help offset potential taxation next year. So in terms of near-term relief, it's very difficult for regional districts with the timing of the whole pandemic. But looking into next year, I know that two other members of the board are here, and having conversations with the senior staff, they're very mindful and aware of what we're doing in 2021 as well. So I expect to see some fiscal prudence from the CVRD going into the 2021 year as well. And on the residential side, of course, we keep advocating for the hardship deferral opportunity, which would essentially for regional districts allow them to make some changes next year that could have an impact for somebody over the 2-year period if they are impacted by loss of income for COVID. But on the business side, much of the same programs and parameters apply for taxation for folks in our electoral areas.
Thanks, everyone. And just before we continue, I just want to go back and acknowledge that we did invite Rod Peters. He's the mayor of Lake Cowichan, and he was unable to join us today. So my apologies for not clarifying that off the top. But I see we have some folks on from Lake Cowichan today. And so hopefully you have an opportunity to connect with your mayor directly. Sorry he couldn't be with us today. And a question to the whole group, everyone who's listening, it's time to fill up the chat boxes and we want to hear from you. So if anybody wants to enter in there what they most want our local leaders to be aware of, and then we're happy to start to bring those forward in today's conversation. Maybe not necessarily in the form of a question, you can pose a thought to them, but somewhere on the theme of what do you want our local leaders to know most of? And so we're waiting for those to come in. We have another question to pose to them. This is a new question, folks. I don't know who wants to go first, but we kind of like to know what are your local governments working on with other higher level governments? So some interesting stuff for us to understand about conversations or partnerships with provincial ministries or federal ministries. What's going on, because we know local government can't do it all by itself. You can't be responsible for anything. So if you have anything to share on where your government's reached out to other levels so you can start to work on solutions. So Erin, I see you want to go first.
So because I just got involved in the Rural Economic Development Task Force, I think it was timely. Minister Monsef, who is the Minister of Rural Economic Development and Gender Equity in Canada, came to Ladysmith early March to look at some of our capital projects, talk about our economic development initiatives in partnership with Community Futures, the other group from Nanaimo, as well as our Chambers of Commerce and some of the other partners in Staminas First Nation. It was really timely because it was before COVID, but fresh enough that when this hit, I received an invitation from the minister to join this Rural Economic Development Task Force. So I was able to collect from our municipal mayors and regional district electoral area directors ideas and input to enter into that first meeting last Friday. So we really hit on some key pieces that would help local governments spur employment and economic growth in the near term. Obviously, expanded granting opportunities from the federal and provincial governments around economic development, higher percentages for capital project funding through granting, a vastly increased granting program in terms of overall funding to local governments to help us. Two things. One is pay a higher percentage of our larger capital projects, which allows us to move those projects forward with less taxation impacts. So allows us to keep the conversation or the tax rates lower. Also, that puts people back to work in skilled trades, helps move the economy forward with good paying jobs. We also are advocating for a one-time benefit, much like was done pre-election, which was they did a one-time doubling of the gas tax revenues to the municipalities. So we asked for a similar transfer. Obviously, with the low consumption of fuel, gas tax may not be the avenue, but a similar one-time transfer to local governments to help us make up for those revenue losses this year, again, allowing us to keep taxation down while still providing services and moving our capital projects forward, especially around the infrastructure deficit. And then also looking at local economic development organizations like the Oak Island Coastal Economic Trust. All of the mayors here are also on the board of directors. We have a heavy Cowichan presence on that Vancouver Island and coastal communities group, and advocating for federal funding to flow through those organizations so that we can help in economic recovery planning. So by being able to fund economic development strategies for local communities that would bring in groups like Community Futures, local First Nations, Chambers of Commerce, and business leaders to help build what the economy post-COVID looks like, if you would, economy 2.0 for our region. And then finally on that was investing in tech and bandwidth. So we know we have last mile issues throughout the Cowichan region. We have so many talented people that are really hampered, even some of our directors on the board. Just as you get out from the core, you lose that access to quality bandwidth, and that limits the innovation sector. I know, as being in a tech startup, we started essentially in a house and then grew from there. And without that high-speed bandwidth available to the last mile, it really hampers that opportunity to expand on the tech initiatives that we're trying to bring to the region. And then, of course, the big pipe piece, which is the biggest piece. So whether you're trying to drive technical financial services, content development, or really any tech-focused initiative, the bandwidth needs to be at the highest level, and we still don't quite have that through the entire region. So we're pushing on that funding for the rural broadband initiatives to increase as well. So there's a lot there. I'll leave more of maybe the provincial discussions, but that's just a piece that we're doing with the federal government.
From our perspective, and again, this sort of goes to federal. One of our biggest capital projects coming up is the relocation of the outfall from the Joint Utilities Board, and the City of Duncan and us are working on that together, along with Cowichan tribes and a few of the electoral areas. We're trying to get that out of the river. Excuse me. We made a commitment to do that 6 or 7 years ago, and it's a multi-million-dollar project. We've got good reserve funding for it. It's not huge tax increases, but it's one of those shovel-ready things. It's green. It does all kinds of good things. And we've asked Aaron to sort of push forward with the feds on that one as an example of something that could be done. The other issue, of course, rail. I don't know if you've seen it, but the executive director of the Corridor Foundation has made the case that, that's something as well. If if the feds are shoveling a bunch of money out the door, that might be an interesting place to put it in terms of not just short-term shovel-ready projects, but also long-term benefits. In terms of dealing provincially, our focus at North Cowichan has been, for now, on the tax relief piece. We sent another letter, Aaron alluded to it earlier, asking the province to reinstate the tax deferral because of the economic crisis. Gordon Campbell did it in 2008. It was a 2-year tax deferral. Right now, you can defer your residential property taxes if you're 55 and over, or if you've got kids in the house, as long as you've got 15% equity in your home. That leaves a pretty big chunk of people in the middle that either don't have 15% equity, don't have kids in their home, or aren't seniors yet. Those people are generally in their peak earning years. They've got the highest mortgages, the highest value of properties, because they haven't downsized yet. And those are also the people that are being impacted by COVID in terms of their businesses and their income. And we're making the case that the province should extend that tax deferral piece to that particular sector for 2 years. And basically, the way it works is you tick a box, the province pays us your property taxes. It's a loan you take out with the province at very low interest. I know people that do this and actually make money at it because they take the money they would have given us, put it in an investment fund, and at the end of the day, when they sell their house, the kids are still ahead a little bit in terms of the estate. So it's, it is what it is. But the option, or the what we're asking for here is that this be expanded to make it universal, so that people who can't afford to pay their property taxes because of the COVID downturn in their businesses or their personal income don't have to go into tax sale or whatever because of that issue. And I know Saanich has passed a resolution. We passed a resolution last week. I sent a copy of that to all the mayors on the island, and I've heard back from, I think, about a half a dozen of them now. It's all coming up on their agendas this week. The problem is the deadline for that, if the province is going to do it, has to be May 15th, because that's when the tax notices go out, and it would have to be part of that process. So they'd have to move quickly. I don't know that they will, but it's certainly something we've been banging the drum on pretty hard.
Michelle, any comments?
Yeah, I don't have a lot. I mean, Aaron and Al have both been pretty thorough about the different things that that their governments and ours and others have been working on with higher levels of government. I feel like part of what has happened in this as well, to go back to the sort of beginning of the conversation, is really around those relationships that Al talked about. I feel like everything is a phone call away right now. Usually it takes we send letters. There's a lot of processes that we have to go through to connect with ministers. Right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. And so I feel that moving forward, along with tax deferrals, looking at what are we going to do in terms of revitalization dollars, and how is that going to flow down from the federal and provincial government? And so there's going to be a lot of connection and working with the governments to make sure that Cowichan is being included in what we need in that. And another piece that we've all been working on with the province that has had a huge negative impact on businesses is working with the province and the federal government to finally use this as an opportunity for something that our community's been struggling with for a long time, which is addressing homelessness and the opioid crisis. And so those are also conversations that we're having, because we know that this is something that our businesses really struggle with. And our community struggles with on all levels. So I would just add those things for now.
Thanks, everyone. So always important is shop local, but it seems now more than ever that comes up a lot. And one of the things we can do as individuals to support a local economy. So looking at it from a local government perspective, would you like to contribute your thoughts on how local government could support shop local, or any thoughts you have on it from your side about the importance of it, how you can contribute to an initiative like that? Who'd like to go first? Aaron.
I feel like I'm
you know
waiting because I
what?
don't want to go first because I talk too much. But
You know what, Aaron? I am going to bump you because Michelle was like a close second, and
okay.
she hasn't been first that much. So, yeah. Go
It's
ahead,
okay.
Michelle.
So shopping, so the shop local, I mean, that's something with having the downtown core that the city has always been really supportive of, working with the Business Improvement Association, also the highways, really encouraging people and sharing is the best ways that we can through the ways that we can, through social media, through the way that the things that the city even does in terms of when we work locally and how we shop locally. I think that those are the sort of basic things that we can do to really help spread that message. And how do we keep that going? How do we keep this, because there's a movement around local shopping. And so I think a really big part of what we can do is to keep that messaging out there, to keep, know who the people are that you're supporting, know how that impacts and supports our community as we move forward for this. Local businesses are the heart and soul of our communities and our towns. They're the ones that have been showing up to give and to help and to support. Look at just there's been so much that local businesses have given to the community this past 7 weeks. And so really just being strong advocates and supports for continuing that idea of a localized economy and how we can support each other.
All right, Aaron, your turn now.
Sorry, I wouldn't have for me. They wanted to keep me quiet. So there's two places. Obviously, the procurement side is a big piece for local government as well. The local governments in the Cowichan region have been involved in what we either call social or community benefit procurement, and that doesn't always lead to buying local, but it does hold that up as one of the principles, is making sure that the dollars that are spent are providing the maximum value back to our local economies. Now, of course, with trade rules and things like that, it doesn't mean that we can put a provision in a multi-million-dollar capital project that says it must be a local group to provide it, but it does allow us, especially on smaller procurement purchases and stuff, to try and focus our purchases through local suppliers and local vendors. And I think that's been established just in maybe in practice for many years, but we're trying to formalize it. You're seeing it at the provincial and federal level as well, talking about making sure that those dollars that are spent by local government are feeding the maximum value back into local communities. And then the second part is that circular economy piece, which Michelle touched on, which is reinforcing the value of local dollars and what the difference is by purchasing locally or supporting local businesses for goods and services versus, either a large multinational, and what happens to those dollars. Whereas I think we know the story. Basically, local businesses generally pay their employees better. They generally spend back in their local communities, and that circular economy sort of feeds on itself. So I think we need to continue to reiterate those messages. I'm really proud of our chambers and our local business organizations doing a lot of that heavy lifting for us. But I know that Al, Michelle, myself, we're all very active on social media. When we see those opportunities to reinforce that message, share those messages, and reflect on those, that we continue to do them. So I think we just need to sort of double down on that push. And I think that give people that feeling that there's more to it than just the widget you walk out the door with. It's about, providing that support for our communities over the long term.
I'm going to politely not disagree, but provide a slightly different perspective here. Yes, shop local, absolutely. I live in Chemainus, and I haven't bought groceries outside of Chemainus for 8 weeks now. But I don't want to demonize the box stores either. They have local employees as well who also need to make a living. And so where is that balance? And I understand the circular economy, and I prefer the local to the box stores, but let's be careful. The one thing I would say is that this COVID situation, I think, is going to add new impetus to something that we've been trying at UBCM for the past couple of years, and that is to find a way to split the commercial tax rate. Right now, if you're running, mom and pop's corner grocery, you're paying the same mill rate on your assessment as if you're running Walmart or any of the big box stores. And we've been saying for a lot of years at UBCM that that commercial assessment class needs to be tweaked based either on volume of sales, square footage, number of employees. There's a number of different factors that could be worked into that, because to me it doesn't make sense that the mom and pop corner grocer is paying that same mill rate as some of these large box stores. So there's a balance piece. This isn't so much about shopping local. I understand that was the question, but it's also how do we make things a little easier for local businesses in terms of the taxation piece. And I suspect that I saw an estimate this morning somewhere that up to 40% of small businesses may fail. I hope to God that's not true, but the reality is that there will be failures. This will, I think, provide some more focus on that small business sector and provide perhaps more impetus to push forward this tax rate split idea for the commercial class. That's it.
Okay, so our next question comes from the area around Lake Cowichan, and I'm just going to pull it up because it's a tad wordy, but I think a great question. So I think we're all aware that Lake Cowichan has made the decision around banning tubing, which we know makes Lake Cowichan a great destination. We know that Lake Cowichan is heavily supported by tourism during the summer months, and it's going to really feel the effects as we go into these summer months. We'd like to hear from the mayor their positions on foreign and local tourism throughout the summer around their areas, because it's broad interpretation. If you come from Duncan to go to Lake Cowichan, are you local or are you foreign? So it's an interesting question about how we're going to invite guests to the area and visitors. So any thoughts about who's local and who's foreign?
We're all trying to lay back now.
Yeah.
I can only reflect on what Dr. Henry said yesterday, was that staycations are likely our summer. So she said fewer faces and big spaces, right? And thankfully in Cowichan, we have a lot of big spaces that we can enjoy. I treat Cowichan as my home territory. So for me, as we move into a summer of a little fewer restrictions, keeping in mind the necessity to keep our distance, I would say that again, it kind of goes back to the local business thing as well, that we should really try and rediscover and explore our local communities while honoring the provisions that need to be in place around safety. I'm loath to comment on tubing because I know it's a bit of a hot button issue, and that's really the responsibility of the local government in terms of how they work with those businesses. But from enjoying the spaces, I know myself, I'm looking forward to a summer of rediscovering maybe some of the things in Cowichan that I haven't been able to see for a while, and really trying to spend my dollars to help support our Cowichan businesses. Having a conversation with Mayor Osborne and Tofino, the tourism piece is going to be particularly troubled and difficult in the coming months. I don't think we see any kind of return of international visitors, obviously. And even in the tourism sector where locals are participating, we have to recognize that it's going to be at a much diminished capacity to what it has been in the past. So I often reflect, even with restaurants and stuff, with that lower ability to seat enough people, does the math make sense for them? What kind of subsidies may be available through the transition time to help those businesses survive and succeed? So I think there's still more work to do on that, but I would say based on what I heard yesterday and hopefully what we hear from the Premier today, it's really focusing on our own regions or maybe the neighboring areas and really staying as close to home as we can while supporting those tourism-focused businesses.
What Aaron said, I mean, I mentioned Chemainus earlier. I've talked to the chamber there. I've talked to their executive director, who's now, by the way, laid off. The days of the big Chinese bus tours are done. It's not going to happen this year. So how do we fill that gap? And some of that is going to be with the staycation, with the people hopefully spending their money closer to home. Whether it's going to be subsidies, I don't have a feel for whether what that's going to look like. it's going to be a hell of a summer. It's going to be a tough summer if your business is reliant primarily on dollars that come into the valley from outside of the valley. You got to find another model to pay your bills, because I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, as you know, I've been spearheading for the long weekends a notion that says bugger off, we're full. We don't want ferry traffic. We're going to hear that the response to that, the definitive response, I suspect by early next week. I don't think the province is going to accede to that request, given the fact that we haven't had a whole lot of new COVID cases on the island. The curve is flattening. Things might look a little different now than when we originally wrote that letter on April 24th. I'm fine with that. The province has taken the request seriously. It's gone all the way to the Premier's office. He's commented on it publicly. We can't ask for more than that. At the end of the day, it's their decision. But it's kind of it's kind of indicative of the question, because if there's a push here on the island, and I had 24 mayors sign on to that, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities has now sent a support letter as of 2 or 3 days ago with the same message. If civic leaders are saying, the priority right now is to stop the spread of this virus, and if that's the priority over economic development and over tourism dollars, then that's what it is. And as the virus, as the curve flattens, those priorities may change. I'm starting to sense some change in terms of the people I'm talking to. I'm starting to sense some change in my own headspace, frankly. Things are different now than they were 4 or 5 weeks ago. We're moving in the right direction. So how do we move forward on that basis? But it's not going to be a normal summer. That's, I guess, the central point to what I'm saying.
Yeah, and just to add to that, that staying local, staying within the region. I mean, to me, the Cowichan Valley is the bubble. It's from the Cowichan region, from Ladysmith to the Malahat and Lake Cowichan. That's sort of the home that I feel like we all agree we reside in together. And so spending that time out in those areas and working together, and those are conversations that we can definitely have as part of our leadership discussions too. Like, how does that work? What does support look like for Lake Cowichan, for the community? And one of the things that I've seen happen, and I really feel strongly will continue to happen, is that the way that businesses are reinventing what they're doing and how they're providing service to people in the community. So I feel like, given those sort of parameters, if we're to stay in our bubble, in our region, over the summer, have that staycation, that there's going to be a lot of opportunities that we can, that local businesses can really work on to engage us in the ways that they can to use that as our adventures. And in terms of an island, different places on the island will have different ideas of what they're comfortable with, what level of visitation, what level of tourism, how is that going to happen? And those are discussions that, as island municipalities and regions, that we need to have, so that we're really clear about what it is that our communities are able and willing to support and expect during these times.
So another question for consideration, a bit of a hot seat question, so please forgive me. So we all work closely together. Is there anything in the works now that the 3 local or 4 local governments could be working together to get through this? In respect that we know that your governments respond and serve your distinct jurisdictions, but is there any opportunity for it all? For all of it to come together to work on an initiative?
I'm going to try to take the lead, yeah. And I'm going to dodge the question, because I don't know of anything specific, but I do know this. We have, as much as possible as local governments and also through the regional district, tried to act together. I'd almost say in lockstep. When we when we made the determination, for example, to cancel our recreation programs and close our rec centers. That wasn't a case of, you know, Ladysmith did it and then 2 days later Duncan did it and then North Cowichan did it after that. That was coordinated effort through the emergency office, help me out here, Aaron, I can't remember what it's called, and through the CVRD, so that, you know, when we do stuff related to COVID, we try to do it region-wide to reduce the confusion and the different regulations in different jurisdictions and municipalities. And I think there's certainly an appetite to try to keep doing that. In terms of specific initiatives, I haven't seen anything yet. I'm certainly open to it, and you know, if my council says we got to initiate something, we'll go there as well. Leave it there for me.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, I'll turn it over to Michelle quickly because she can maybe comment on this, but she already brought up the leadership group too, where we have these calls every Friday. We're all together, our MLA, our MP are there, and we're all talking about this process. And as we move to the recovery phase, I would think that becomes more and more of a clear and present discussion among that group. And it goes to that collaboration at all levels. So the Cowichan team, school board, MLAs, MP, and all the local government leaders are working as in lockstep as we can. Al, that was the Regional Emergency Operations Center that deals with that side of it for us. But the leadership team, all of us as elected officials, have been coordinating. I'm a latecomer to it, so I'll turn it over to Michelle maybe to reflect on what input she has. But we are really coordinated in terms of communicating with each other. What are we doing? What opportunities do we see? And I could imagine that as we turn this corner, that discussion will probably start taking off this week.
Thanks, Aaron. Michelle, do you want to tag on to that?
Yeah, so just to add to it, I mean, that the leadership team came together. We've been working for over a year on different issues in our community. We're meeting at least once a month, but in connection when we need each other, when someone has an idea that needs support. There's been so many of those over the past year and a half since the leadership team was formed. And I feel like, as Aaron was saying, we meet every week. And as we start to look at what's happening, you know, even 3 weeks ago when it was a long weekend, we did a message together, right? Where every one of us, our chief medical health officer also sits on that. And Chief Seymour from Cowichan Tribe sits on that team. And we did a message just to, you know, remind everybody to stay at home. We're thinking about you. And so we already have that kind of collective mentality of working together in the ways that we can, in whether it's in the core or in the broader region. And so there's definitely going to be something and many things most likely that we will be doing carrying forward, but we haven't been having those discussions lately. Our discussions have been really focused on what's happening right now. What do we need? Who do we need to talk to? Who's doing what? How do we support each other? And so I guess just to summarize, you know, that's absolutely the way that we operate and will continue to operate, and it'll more and more will come out of that as we move forward.
Thank you. So the next question is specific to Michelle, the City of Duncan. As was announced recently, your government put together a $100,000 grant program. And are you able to expand on that in this call? Maybe what its intention is, maybe give us a sense of the types of applications you're looking for. So please, Michelle, if you could fill us in on that.
Yeah, so I won't have a lot to add at this point. We're having a special council meeting on Monday night to go over the parameters for what this will look like. But essentially what this is to make sure that ideas that people have for moving, whether it's business or recovery forward, not always, sometimes those ideas take a very small amount of capital to actually do what they need to do. And so we came up with this idea that we want to be able to invest directly into our community at a local level with different organizations. I know the BAA already has some ideas of things that they'd like to put through this process. and a number of different people have talked about some of the things that they're thinking of, and this just allows us to invest at a local level. And we know when we do that you know, the return is great for all of us. And so once we get on Monday night, we'll have more information. There'll be a press release with all the details going out, and also about the parameters around it. But it really is to invest locally into recovery and to hear the ideas that we haven't thought of, right? And then give them some support to actually come to fruition to help our community move through this.
Excellent. So we'll be watching for that after Monday. Thank you. So we're in the last couple minutes before we come up on noon. So a call to everybody. You've got a couple minutes to quickly throw something in the chat. If there's something you want our local leaders to really hear from you, and maybe as we give a few moments for folks to do that, any parting comments from our three guests today?
I'm just looking at the chat questions. One of them, I assume, is directed at me from Sharon Horsberg. As local government plans to reestablish council-appointed committees, we're the only ones that have done away with committees, so I'm assuming this is for me. It's an ongoing discussion that we're having. At this point, probably not. We're doing everything through the committee of the whole piece. Kim Bernard and Shawnigan talks about the engagement that her electoral area director has been doing. I've been doing periodic Facebook Live coffee with the mayor things as well. I think I'm doing one this Friday. We kind of do it by the seat of our pants. We decide when it's time to do one, and I'm leaning toward Friday afternoon. Those are great. A lot of good engagement and questions and stuff, and I really enjoy doing it because I miss the face-to-face. So those are two that I could personally respond to.
Well, and if I can tag on to that, because I saw those come through as well, and Director Acton has done that as well. Mayor Sebring, we've had what we call e-town halls, which are more council focused, but accommodated by Zoom as well. And last night at our council meeting, Councillor Mackay put forward sort of doing that on a more ongoing basis, as well as individual members of council sort of sharing and gathering information. So we're doing that as well, and I think that is a great idea. On the final thing that I think that we're doing that is put us in a good stead to do the recovery piece is we have a task force in Ladysmith that was formed about 1.5 years ago called the Partnership for a Vibrant Local Economy, and that is led by the Chamber of Commerce with the Community Futures, the Downtown Business Association, Staminas First Nation, Nanaimo Airport, the town, and a couple of other, Economic Development Cowichan. How could I forget those guys? That helped us develop our economic development strategy, and we do have a new Ladysmith app launching this summer, which allows businesses, investors, and visitors to basically get the most out of their experience in Ladysmith. So if you're an investor, it looks at business opportunities, land availability, all throughout the region, from the Nanaimo Airport through to our southern border of North Cowichan, and encompasses all of those opportunities, but also gives a great directory around businesses, what's available, and we'll be able to put the restrictions and limitations around COVID-19 in there. So as people hopefully do visit Ladysmith on their staycation from Chemainus or vice versa, we can make their experience as good as possible. And we'll use that group to continue to discuss recovery from COVID and make sure that we're kind of getting that front lines information through so that we can advocate for what changes need to be done over the near and the long term.
Yeah, and in terms of some of the things that the city's been talking about, how we have sort of those public input events online into different plans that we're in the process of community input stages and feedback stages around Macadam Park, the Cairnsmore neighborhood, as well as the downtown parkettes. I'm not sure what the name of that is yet, but looking at what to do with that space downtown that used to be the Red Balloon, and also what was happening around Whistler Street, and just the ideas that came forward to share with the community that we're just at the point of going back out and getting public input. So we're in the process, staff's in the process of putting all of that online, and looking at ways that we go and do those. We had neighborhood coffees with the mayor. We did one just before this started with Cairnsmore, and we had others planned in 4 other neighborhoods. And so looking how we can start to move those types of things online, and then just finding other ways to engage with the community. And through this recovery, resilience and response task force as well, looking at the pendulum is going to swing a lot between these places. And so how do we continue to work together to support where we're at, and always be coming sort of back to what's happening now. What are we in that point of, how do we recover while we're still responding, and having those conversations and keeping communications open. That's one of the things that is huge. And unfortunately, social media only reaches so many people. In the city, we have a small city, and we just sent out a newsletter to, or just in the process of sending out one to all of our community members, and trying to find ways to do the same thing with all of our businesses. So yeah, we'll see where we all go from here. And I really have a lot of faith, because our community is good at doing things together and working together. And if this time has shown us anything, it's that we know where we live, and we know how to support each other through all things. And I appreciate everything everyone is doing.
Kathy, can I just throw one other thing? We all 3 of us use the term communication. I said at the start that I was hoping for some input and some feedback in terms of how we're doing, and we haven't had a lot of that, and that's fair. mayor@northcowichan.ca. I check that email address every 15 minutes. So if you need anything, or if you have input that wasn't addressed here, mayor@northcowichan.ca gets through to me. I have a council meeting this afternoon, so it might be tonight before I get back to you, but there you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Does Mayor Staples and Mayor Aaron Stone, do you want to just share your email addresses? And
I think all of ours are mayor@. So I think mine's mayor@ladysmith.ca. I think Michelle's is mayor@Duncan.
Duncan.ca, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Unlike Mayor Sebring, though, it may take me a day or 2 to get back.
Yeah, same.
I don't know how he does it. I've never seen him fight, but he must have fiery things.
I live behind my screen. I got one in bed. It's that bad.
Oh, geez. And I'm sure you can go to local government websites and just take them from there, certainly. So thank you. We have just one question coming in here at the end. Someone's asked. Someone's curious, looking to get input on, as we start to move to much more virtual meetings, businesses operating more virtually. Is anyone aware of any supports or grants where employers can take advantage of that support to start to invest in technology they need? Does anybody want to take a shot at that question?
I haven't seen anything at this point in time.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something that we can put out in, again, in our calls, that the best thing people can do is reach out to ask, what are those gaps? Let us know, and we can take that forward to different levels of government that can provide funding and support for that. That's definitely something that we can continue to do and will continue to do.
Okay. I'm happy to provide a little bit of information that I'm aware of relative to technology for everybody in the call. Vancouver Island has Innovation Island, and it's a provincially funded organization whose mandate is to help advance technology and innovation on Vancouver Island. And they have a program that's been designed specifically to help businesses who want to have a stronger presence in the digital economy or the knowledge economy, learn how to do business online, become much more virtual. It was a program funded by the Island Coast Economic Trust. So just go to Innovation Island, type that into your Google, and look for their programming. So if any business is looking for support about how it can become much more digital or have a stronger online presence, that program is designed to help you. And as of right now, it's no cost. So, so hopefully that little extra information from myself has value to everybody on the call today. Yeah. Super. So with that, we will call it a wrap. I think people have got other meetings and council meetings to go to. So before we go, just want to extend a huge thank you to our three mayors for joining us today. My sense is we had a great conversation with lots of value. And for everybody who was a part of it, we hope it was the same for you. A great call. And you've got your mayor's emails, so type away.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all very much. We'll hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Thank you for all your work that you're doing as well, Kathy, and all your team.
Yes. Yes. To the Cowichan strong team.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.